Right, basically what we need when we're fishing wets is we like a bit of a wind, and we're getting plenty of wind at the moment. Wind is nearly too strong, but you really do need a wind to fish the wet flies from a drifting boat. The whole idea is we're using the wind to let the boat drift along, and we're casting down in front of us maybe 15-20 meters ahead of the boat, like so, and just retrieving the flies back through the waves. So tipping them through, and I as you've seen, I have a team of 3 wet flies on. I have 3 wet mayfly patterns on. So what I'm doing there, I'm using the wind to billow them, dibble them on the wave in front of me, lift and cast and out again. Now, just after seeing a couple of mayflies going down there, so that the whole idea is mayflies are hatching, they're getting blown along the top of the surface ahead of us. So what we're doing here in the boat is we're just casting ahead of us with slow sinking lines. Mike's on a Kelly Green intermediate, I'm on a 12-foot fast tip. So basically our lines are just cutting through the top of the surface of the water, and our teams of flies are just been retrieved right and under the surface. So that's what I'm doing, casting out and retrieving back. Now basically most of the time I'm fishing blind here, but as I'm looking out ahead of me at the moment, I'm seeing quite a few mayfly going down in the slicks ahead of me. So keeping our eyes peeled here, if we see any fish moving, if you see any rise at all, and basically it's a matter of you chuck your team of wets over the rising fish, and hopefully that fish will connect with your fly and take it. So that's what I'm doing. We can change the type of line we use a lot. Here on the wet flies we can go from a floater right down to fast sinking line, but generally as a rule of thumb here on Corrib and the mayfly time, you're using floaters or slow intermediates, at most a fast intermediate. So that's it. So just setting up a boat in the drift, letting her drift away, working my flies ahead of me here in the wave, and just hoping for a fish to connect. Well, I think the minimum you've got to have is 2, and I think the reason you need 2 is to dibble the top fly. Right, if you only fish 1 fly, then you can't dibble it, because as soon as you pull that 1 fly out of the water, it flies up. Whereas if you have a 2 fly setup with a dropper, once you pull that fly out, the point fly will anchor it, and it will dibble hanging off the dropper on the top of the wave. So it's quite enticing to a fish. It looks like a fly that's just hatching. So I think it's important that you at least use 2. Quite more often than not, I'd say most of the fish that you catch are either on the top fly or the bottom fly. So, you know, if you were to dispense with any fly, yeah, the 3rd fly, it would be the middle one. I don't bother using 4 flies too much. Certain times, if I was definitely fishing out in open water, because I think you really want to find what pattern they're on. That's the main advantage of a 4 fly cast. You can fish an extra pattern. But I think 3 is perfectly adequate for mayfly time. All right, at this time of the year, mayfly time, basically you're looking for mayflies, which I know sounds very simple, but basically you want to be in a place where there are mayfly hatching. So what are you looking for that? What's going to be the telltale sign? Well, if you don't have local knowledge, if you're in a place, but let's say for example, if you see seagulls hovering above the water, seagulls are there because they're feeding on probably mayfly. Might be feeding on olives or another fly, but if you move over to where those seagulls are, you'll find out soon enough what they're on. They're giveaway signs, so if there's mayfly hatching there, the seagulls are feeding on them, there's every chance that the trout may be feeding on them. Local knowledge will come into any place. There's a fish just after moving down ahead of us. Do you see that one, Mike? Do you see that fish? Yeah. So fish after moving ahead of us. Good man. So, which is another telltale sign. But so that's what you're looking for. Once you find the fly, you want to stay around them, because if they're a fly there, the chances the fish are feeding on them. If the fish are feeding on them, you've a better chance of catching them. Yeah, I think what happens in mayfly time, size is the most crucial thing first off. Most mayflies are about a size 10 to a size 8, so you've got to be fishing flies around that size. It's no point fishing 14s in a mayfly hatch if they're feeding on mayfly. After getting the size right, then it's down to colour. But there's so many variations on that and factors that determine that. You're talking light conditions can vary from within 5 minutes. So, you know, on a bright day, a bright yellow fly will represent the mayfly, but like, you know, if suddenly clouds up, you want something darker, and you might even want a claret fly. So that's the beauty of having 3 flies on again, is you can vary the different shades between the 3. Quite often when I fish a team of 3 mayflies, I wouldn't have them all the same shade. And that would allow me that when it gets bright for any particular time or gets dark, that I'm covering all those shades. Generally when you're looking for buzzer, you're looking for bays that have sheltered bays that have silty, muddy bottoms. More or less the same with olives. Later on in the year when you're looking at Daphnia feeders, you're looking in open water, deeper water. So it can vary, you know, where you want to get to where those flies are hatching, where the food is for the fish. So yeah, like early season when you're looking at the duck fly hatches, you're in tight, close into bays, in sheltered coves, which is completely different to the mayfly water that we're fishing today. Yeah, you do, because the boat is moving so fast here, it's very hard to keep in contact with them. So if you see movement at all, or if you feel any resistance, you've got to hit into the fish to try and set the hook on them. As I said, if you can probably notice in the background here, this boat is really, really moving along very quickly. So because you're moving towards the fish, if the fish takes, you've got to make sure to tighten the line into him to set the hook. If you're waiting for the fish to run away with the fly and to hook himself, it doesn't happen with the wild Corrib browns. You've got a split second, about a second to tighten into him before he ejects the fly. So you've got to do it then.